Hello, you have fiddled around and ended up in the view from the crow's nest. I'm Robert Crowe, and whenever I get around to it, I investigate some sharp topics. Our program today, Beethoven's Conversation Books. Ludwig van Beethoven, 1770 to 1827. Beethoven was completely deaf when he wrote the majestic Ninth Symphony. He began having hearing problems in 1801 and gradually lost hearing over a period of 20 years until in 1820 he was totally deaf. He began composing the Ninth Symphony in 1822, and it was first performed 2 years later. In the last 9 years of his life, Beethoven used notebooks to communicate with visitors. He kept blank-page books available at his home. A visitor wrote down a question, to which Beethoven generally responded verbally. There were about 400 completed books, but only 136 survive. Enter the rather strange story of Anton Schindler, Beethoven's biographer. After Beethoven's death, Schindler, having access to the Beethoven materials, kept the booklets and other documents. He destroyed most of the conversation books and edited others, deleting material he deemed of little interest. Indeed, the booklets tell us little of Beethoven's thinking because the books were for questions and responses by his guests. Because Beethoven replied verbally to the written material, the notebooks reflect the comments of each guest. Facing financial problems, Schindler eventually sold the 136 remaining conversation books to a Berlin publisher. The role of Anton Schindler is an interesting historical study. It appears that Schindler's relationship with Beethoven was not as close as he made it out to be. Schindler served as a volunteer secretary at the time of Beethoven's death. Subsequent scholars have identified forged entries into the conversation books, as well as exaggerations in the biography that magnified Schindler's relationship. About Anton Schindler, scholars have said that he had a, I quote, notorious propensity for falsification, unquote, and that he, quote, had no scruples about fabricating history, unquote. Fortunately, the remaining conversation books are still available to us and do give a limited peek into the daily topics of one of the world's greatest composers. The conversation books provide interesting information, but pale when compared to the composer's composition books that outline his musical masterpieces. Well, that's our program for today. Check back often and see if we have the courage to ever try this again on another random topic. I'm Robert Crowe with The View from the Crow's Nest.